Well, I'm joined right now by Ann Coulter, as well as Republican strategist Liz Mayer, who runs the anti-Trump super PAC, Trump Card LLC. I was just quoting to you, Liz, during the break, that Richard Nixon once said, whenever you hear of a Stop X movement, bet on X. Aren't you leading an Stop X movement?
I am, and I aim to prove Richard Nixon wrong about that, in addition to many other things.
So you think you're right?
I hope I'm right.
Do you believe he's, in the words of Michael Gerson, defacing the Republican Party?
Yeah, I think he is, and inherently I don't think that there's necessarily a problem with destroying certain aspects of the Republican Party as it exists. I think that there are many of us in the Republican Party who have a real problem with the establishment and the way that it's run things. But from my perspective, of somebody who is a legitimate economic and fiscal conservative, I do have a problem with Trump and where he stands on an array of economic and fiscal conservative issues, and the fact that he is very close to Hillary Clinton on those, in some cases actually to the left of hers.
Okay, let me go to Ann. How do you review that thought, that set of thoughts?
Well, I think it's all about immigration. It doesn't really matter what a Republican's position is on saving Social Security or how they're going to reform Medicare. Americans are being outvoted by foreigners, and Americans have been begging their own party to shut it down, to stop this endless immigration for decades now. Both the media and elected Republicans and Democrats have tried to push amnesty through 3 times in the last decade, and every time it was shut down, not by a presidential candidate, not by some big, media figure. It was the American people getting wind of it and rising up in rage. Donald Trump is the first one to finally take America's side on immigration. That is why he is sweeping the polls.
Well, I think that that's a patently ludicrous notion. I mean, most of the time when we've been looking at amnesty fights, supposedly, they've actually been shut down by a set of groups that are funded by a population control enthusiast liberal who was actually involved with zero population growth in the Sierra Club. That's who's actually shut it down. It's not actually in any way advancing the economic interests of the American people. Free market economists across the board agree with that. The only people who take the stance that Trump is taking with regard to immigration and who actually believe that what he's proposing would be a good idea are hardened liberals who adhere to the same economic policy line of unions out of the 1970s.
You want to respond to that, Ann? Because I think you're right in this. I'll give you a broader dose. I think a couple of things. I think Trump is appealing to nationalism.
Sure, he's appealing.
No, a sense that the country has been sold out by the elite on immigration, on jobs, and on these wars we shouldn't be fighting.
I don't disagree with that, but to say that it's just about immigration or even primarily about immigration is bogus.
Why did he come in that door if it didn't work? He came right in the door on immigration. That was the issue. He gave him his ticket.
If I could say, because that was his opening, his announcement speech announcing he was running for president was about Mexican rapists and drug dealers. His very first policy paper, for this guy who allegedly isn't giving us details, was an immigration policy paper. When he was talking at that values voters summit, and he said something untoward about Marco Rubio, the crowd starts to grumble and turn against him. How does he attack Rubio? He instantly goes to immigration. Every day he is giving speeches before thousands, tens of thousands sometimes, of Americans, regular, ordinary Americans. He knows what gets them on their feet. He knows what's getting him the standing ovation. And over again, it is immigration. To try to say it's some guy I've never heard of, and they're the only people who oppose immigration. No, immigration was shut down, or amnesties, 3 times now when the American people rose up and shut down the congressional switchboard.